We're often told that we live in a post-colonial world, a global village where borders are fading, technology connects us all, and a meritocracy brings freedom to every corner of the earth. But for many nations in the Global South, the end of direct colonial rule didn't actually bring economic independence. Political sovereignty was won on paper, but the financial architecture of the past remained largely intact. Developing nations still rely heavily on Western markets and international financial institutions. These entities frequently dictate local economic development, ensuring that the Global South remains tied to the interests of the Global North. Modern colonialism operates through a new empire of multinational corporations, global trade systems, and military influence. It no longer needs a foreign governor in a palace to exercise power. It manages the world through capital and political management. Post-colonial art and fiction measure the human cost that the sterile language of global progress often ignores. These stories expose the specific inequalities hidden behind abstract talk of connectivity and emerging markets. Consider the promise of economic meritocracy, the claim that the global market offers a fair path upward for anyone willing to work hard. Don DeLillo's Cosmopolis highlights the reality of the hypermobile financial elite. His protagonist, Eric Packer, moves billions of dollars from the back of a limousine, possessing enormous economic power while remaining completely isolated from the people affected by the systems he controls. This isolation is mirrored in the Global South. In Aravind Adiga's The White Tiger, Bangalore appears as a gleaming tech hub, but its prosperity depends entirely on a vast population of domestic servants and drivers. Adiga describes this as the rooster coop. It's a structure where the poor are trained to accept obedience, creating an invisible workforce that sustains the wealthy, globally connected India. The protagonist, Balram, eventually escapes this coup, but only by adopting the ruthless individualism of the system itself. His transformation from servant to businessman is an act of resistance, but it's one that reproduces the same violence he was trying to flee. His journey reveals a central contradiction. Global capital moves across national boundaries with total freedom, but the human beings serving that capital remain strictly contained. There is also a cultural myth, the idea that globalization creates a shared, harmonious melting pot, where diversity is celebrated for its own sake. In practice, this exchange is often one-sided. Western lifestyles are marketed as the universal standard of modernity, while local traditions are represented as backward, pressuring individuals to reject their own heritage to appear successful. The film The Namesake, based on Jhumpa Lahiri's novel, explores the emotional weight of this pressure. Gogol, the son of Bengali immigrants, initially rejects his family traditions because they make him feel different from his American peers. His identity develops in what Homi Bhabha calls the third space. It isn't a simple choice between India and America. It's a constant, demanding negotiation between two conflicting worlds that shape each other. Gogol's eventual acceptance of his name is a form of cultural recovery. He finds a way to exist in the present without erasing his past, even as the global pressure to assimilate remains constant. The third myth involves security. We are told that international interventions are conducted solely to spread democracy and maintain global progress. After 9/11, the language of security was used to justify the global war on terror. This allowed the new American empire to exert military power and political management over post-colonial spaces. These interventions create a sharp divide in power. On the ground, the vulnerability of the local population is constant, while the forces representing global security remain the judge and the authority. Arundhati Roy's The Ministry of Utmost Happiness resists this narrative through fragmented storytelling. She focuses on characters excluded from official history, asking whose violence is heavily televised and whose violence is made to disappear. The vocabulary of modernization frequently serves as a smokescreen for the displacement of vulnerable communities, turning progress into a justification for state and corporate power. The forces of globalization reorganize historical colonial inequalities into new, complex hierarchies. Economic dependence, cultural hierarchy, and military intervention continue the patterns of the past under the banner of global connection. Yet these same structures also produce new forms of resistance. Because globalization forces different worlds together, it creates the very tools used to challenge its dominance. Resistance takes many forms. It's found in the comedy of Osuwafia in London, which mocks the idea of Western superiority, and in the novels of Arundhati Roy, which use memory and solidarity to give voice to those silenced by the market. Engaging with these powerful stories is a way to dismantle the official history written by states and corporations. It turns the act of reading into a refusal to accept the myth of a neutral, borderless world. Whenever the promise of global progress is invoked, the post-colonial lens remains necessary. It forces us to ask, who defines this progress, and who is being forced to pay its social cost?